Mike McDaniel has removed himself from consideration for the Browns' head coaching job. Meanwhile, Cleveland now faces competition from the Buffalo Bills for fast-rising candidate Grant Udinski. Plus, Baker Mayfield takes a subtle jab at his former head coach on social media. Let's break it all down right here on the Daily Dawgs. Hi again, everybody, and welcome into the Daily Dawgs here on the Big Play Sports Network presented by FanDuel. I'm Ryan Tyler, joined as always by Browns on SI Insider, as well as host of the Big Play Cleveland show here on the Big Play Sports Network, Nick Padone. Nick, good morning. Third day that we've been doing this show, and it feels like the news cycle just keeps on spinning. We have so much to talk about today. Before we're joined by Browns legend Phil Taylor, Nick, we've got to have a discussion about one Grant Udinski, a name that you've been pretty vocal on and advocate for. Well, now the Browns have some competition. Grant Udinski was announced at the Buffalo Bills have shown interest in Grant Udinski. They have requested to interview him for their head coach position as they now move on from the Sean McDermott era to get Buffalo to the promised land. And it appears that Grant Udinski is a name that they've circled and they want to talk to see if he can get the job done.
Yeah, so this is notable because I had the Browns and Grant Udinski kind of as the front runner of this entire thing, because when Andrew Berry met with the media and spoke after they fired Kevin Stefanski following his 6 seasons with the Browns, Andrew Berry explained that Cleveland's search might look a little bit different, and that in both 2019 and 2020, Kevin Stefanski and the Browns were kind of the only match. There wasn't a ton of interest out there in Kevin Stefanski, very similar to this. The Browns and Grant Udinski were the only interviews that Grant Udinski was having up until this morning, where the news comes out that now the Browns wouldn't even be able to wouldn't be able to hire him on Friday, even if they wanted to, because of the Rooney Rule. We'll talk a little bit about the process, but yeah, the Browns definitely have a little bit of added competition, as I think, if you're Grant Udinski, you're probably going to want to see how Buffalo's interview process plays out. You got the opportunity to coach MVP and Josh Allen out there versus the question mark at quarterback that we currently have here in Cleveland. That is some serious competition for the Browns. Obviously, we don't know how serious Buffalo is about Udinski. I believe that Udinski is the front runner here in Cleveland, so maybe he'll, kind of withdraw his name if things get serious on Friday with his second interview with the Browns later this week. But yeah, this is certainly a big domino, because it felt like this was the guy that the Browns maybe were really targeting all along to be their next head coach, and now it might not be that easy, even with him coming into their building later this week.
Nick, I'm going to feel a little bit jaded. I'm not going to lie to you if he goes to the Buffalo Bills. Everybody, it seems like in this era, we all talk about we want to find our next Sean McVay, right? The young hotshot coordinator that comes up and consistently gets the team to the playoffs. Heck, if Grant Udinski is for that, then I'm sad to hear about the Rooney Rule, the fact the Browns can't yet hire him as their head coach, even if they wanted to. And I sit here today and I think, like you said, Nick, there's not a single reason I can imagine anybody would take a lateral role here in Cleveland versus the same role there in Buffalo.
Yeah, so if you're Udinski, you've got this interview in person with the Browns on Friday, and I think the Browns like him. They spent 3 hours on a remote virtual interview with him. The Haslam private jet was mysteriously in Jacksonville twice over the last week, and they haven't been able to interview with him in person. So what it was doing there, I'm not really sure. I mean, maybe since they've gotten permission from Jacksonville, maybe they took him out on an informal lunch or a dinner or something like that. I'm not too sure. They're definitely interested in this guy, but now because Mike McDaniel withdrew his name from the candidacy on on Tuesday afternoon, he was set to interview with the Browns on Wednesday. We find ourselves in a bind, and I think for people who want to question Andrew Berry and the way that he's gone around this process, you've got the right to do so, because you need to have 2 in person. There's been a little bit of confusion about this Rooney Rule stuff. You need to have 2 in-person formal interviews with minority candidates or women candidates to fulfill the Rooney Rule obligations. The Browns were supposed to have their first one today on Wednesday with Mike McDaniel, but now he's going to be the offensive coordinator of the Los Angeles Chargers. So you're not going to get your first known, at least in-person interview with the minority candidate until hopefully early next week, when they meet with Rams passing game coordinator Nathan Shieldhouse for the opening. So even if everything with Udinski goes according to the plan on Friday, and this is the guy that you want to move forward with, and you don't want to let him out of the building because now Buffalo's got this interest, well, you can't even take it that seriously because you still have to check your Rooney Rule boxes before you go ahead and hire anybody. So it would be smart, it would be wise if Andrew Berry could get somebody on the horn and into Cleveland really on Wednesday. Now that McDaniel canceled, on Thursday they're going to meet with Jesse Minter, the Chargers defensive coordinator, who has plenty of interest elsewhere. He's believed to be a front runner in Baltimore for that Ravens job too. So you could really start to poke some holes in the process in the way that Andrew Berry has gone about scheduling these interviews, because if the guy that you wanted all along is about to come here and be in your building, a lot of common football logic people would tell you, well, you don't let him out of that building, but he's going to be let out of the building. They're going to have no other choice to.
So then we know the names that have been in the discussion for the Cleveland Browns head coach role ad nauseum, right? We've talked Schwartz, we've talked Tommy Rees. He didn't get a second interview. We've talked Todd Monken, who did get a second interview. We know Mike McDaniel is not going to interview, obviously, anymore for the Cleveland Browns. And you mentioned Nate Scheelhaase is that one that would qualify to fulfill that role for the Rooney Rule. So there's got to be a mystery candidate, right? Is there going to be a new name added to this mix that we haven't heard yet? And I got to ask the question, is it going to be a serious consideration, or is it just going to be something to fulfill this role?
And so it also has to be external. I know a lot of people pointed to like the Browns defensive line coach, who obviously a lot of people like around the league because of look at what the Browns defensive line has done over the last couple of years. Myles Garrett is a big fan of Jaquez as well, Coach Jock. But it can't be an internal interview either. So it's going to have to be an external interview. And again, how serious would that be? I've toyed along with the idea of a mystery candidate in my head for quite some time, and I haven't heard anything of the sort. You know, that maybe they've had an interview with one of these college coaches. You know, maybe, I know this is going to really get some people going, but Deion Sanders had a head coaching interview with the Dallas Cowboys last year. Could he be a guy that gets an interview for this now? Like, they are going to have to add somebody. That's the big, that's the headline. Forget any of the names that they could bring in. They're going to have to talk to somebody else before they're actually allowed to hire somebody. Maybe they have, maybe it's just not public. Maybe one of these college coaches didn't want their name to get out there in the public sphere because then that sabotages the transfer portal and NIL and all that stuff. But yeah, with McDaniel dropping out of the race and his interview was supposed to be today on Wednesday, they're going to have no other choice but to add somebody else to the mix.
Well, scratch Mike Daniel off that list. We already scratched John Harbaugh off the list. We know he's going to the New York Giants. Who the heck's going to be the Browns head coach? We're going to take a break. When we get back, Browns legend Phil Taylor joins the show to discuss Mike McDaniel withdrawing his name from the Browns candidacy. Hey, everybody. Welcome back into the Daily Dogs here on the Big Play Sports Network. Ryan Tyler, Nick Padone. We are now joined by Cleveland Browns legend Phil Taylor. Phil, good morning. Welcome to the Daily Dogs, my friend.
Appreciate you having me on, man. Morning, guys.
Absolutely. Well, we got the news, Phil, yesterday that Mike McDaniel, former Dolphins head coach, has withdrawn his name from the candidacy to fulfill the Browns head coach position. Phil, my only question to you really is, was he a candidate that you were highly touted of? Like, did you want Mike McDaniel here in Cleveland? I know you were in Cleveland, in Berea, at the same time Mike McDaniel was here on the staff in Cleveland. Did you have any interactions with him, and what were your overall thoughts on him as a head coach candidate?
Obviously, I think he was a good coordinator, but he didn't fare so well, as a head coach in Miami. Maybe, dealing with injuries and things like that. But, when he was here, he wasn't that known. He was just the wide receivers coach. So, we were, I didn't expect anything of it. But, me hearing the news that he withdrawn is, it kind of said something about Cleveland. You know what I mean? Why wouldn't you want to, be a head coach at a team like Cleveland? But my pick was Harbaugh, and obviously that's not happening. I would say Tomlin or McDermott. That'd be something cool. But I think this team needs a leader of men, and I just don't, I think that everybody's trying to find that next, the Ben Johnson, the diamond in the rough, but you never know, so We'll see. We'll see.
Phil, we heard some reports earlier this morning that the Browns are doing their homework and their due diligence on Sean McDermott. It's fascinating because in 2016, that's who Andrew Berry wanted to hire. He was just a VP, in the front office. A very young Andrew Berry 10 years ago wanted to hire Sean McDermott. So did Sashi Brown and Paul DePodesta, but they were trumped by ownership who decided to go forward and give the job to Hugh Jackson. And we know how all of that unfolded. Obviously, Sean McDermott out in Buffalo. You think that would be a cool fit here in Cleveland with the Browns?
I think so. He seems like a coach that leads by example, and the guys buy in. He had some bad QB play, in the playoffs that I really think, got him up out of there. But other than that, man, he's a winner. You know what I mean? And he can bring that spirit to Cleveland, and we're desperate for it.
I also wanted to ask you about Jim Schwartz. Obviously, you're a defensive guy, a defensive lineman. This defensive line has absolutely feasted over the last 3 years with Jim Schwartz as their defensive coordinator. We had Josh Cribbs on the Daily Dawgs yesterday. He said that that's his pick because of the circumstances, because this defense is so ready to go and contend for meaningful games and Super Bowls with all these guys in their prime. How would you feel about Jim Schwartz if he was named the next head coach of the Browns? Because me personally, Phil, I'd be a little gun shy on that he could be kind of a lame duck coach and we'd be getting ready to do this all over again next year.
I disagree with you on that. I think it'd be good because, he's already in the building. He's been a head coach before. He demands respect. He's that type of coach where guys will, they'll lock in, and I feel like, him being the, hiring within and making him the head coach will be easier, even if he has a bad year next year. I feel like getting rid of him after a year will be a lot easier than bringing somebody totally new in and then have to do the whole process over.
Phil, another name that's come up in this coaching process and is gaining steam is Grant Udinski, the young 30-year-old OC in Jacksonville. As a former player, is it weird, you think, for a guy like, let's say, Myles Garrett, the Cleveland Browns' best player, right, to be 30, if he does end up having a head coach that's also 30 years old, do you think that works in today's NFL, or is the age gap not big enough?
It'd be interesting, but at the same time, his position would be higher than Myles, but at the same time, these younger guys got to be like, hey, man to man, if somebody come to you man to man, you got to be a man about it and talk, you got to talk it. So the younger head coaches, I think they got to play ball a little differently when it comes to the presence in the locker room and things like that. So,
Phil, you also talked about with Mike McDaniel taking himself out of the running and the candidacy to become the next Browns head coach. When we talk about the reasoning as to why, it certainly sounds like he's going to be the next OC of the Chargers. He had a ton of interest to be a coordinator again. He also walked away from the Las Vegas Raiders head coach opening, as well as the Baltimore Ravens, who interviewed Mike McDaniel for their opening. But in your mind, Phil, why don't you think this Browns job is like that attractive, where now you've lost out on Harbaugh without even really getting a formal interview? You lost out on McDaniel before he even took his second in-person interview in Cleveland. Like, what is it about this Browns job? Is it something with Andrew Berry? Is it something with the ownership? Is it the lack of true answer at quarterback? Like, it feels like this is really not as attractive as an opening as I thought it was going to be, because I thought it would be attractive for people to come here and coach Myles Garrett and coach this defense and kind of have 2 first-round picks to play with to fix the offense.
It's a lot of things, and it could be, it's Cleveland, like some people think their careers come to die here, you know what I mean? And I don't know. I feel like I want to start believing the curse, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, it's hard, we got to sell it. But at the same time, it could be ownership, maybe they don't think, they get the shot they truly deserve by coming here. They don't get to be hands-on and, picking the team and things like that. It can be a multiple of things, but it sucks, and I feel like, if I was Jimmy Haslam, I would have told Harbaugh what you need, do whatever, figure it out. You know what I mean? And I feel like also we kind of, taint the new coach by telling, hey, if we hire you, will you bring on Schwartz as a D coordinator? Some coaches want to pick their guys. No disrespect to Schwartz, but some coaches want to pick their guys, and sometimes some coaches want to come in with a brand new GM. You know what I mean? And so it's a lot of moving parts that other people see that us on the outside don't.
Phil, how close do you think this team is to competing? Because obviously, as a defensive player yourself, you recognize how great this defense was, specifically the defensive line. But we all know this is an offensive league driven by the quarterback position, and certainly we don't have an answer at that position. So how close do you think the Browns really are to being a playoff team and competing for championships?
We're not far. I wouldn't say we're super close, but we're not far. But we just got to fix, I think, on the offensive side, in the draft, we need O-line and wide receivers, and I think our first, 3 to 4 picks should be at least two O-linemen and a wide receiver. You know what I mean? So that's what I think. We get that offense rolling. I feel like the defense and keep our defensive guys here in Cleveland and not getting rid of them. I feel like we'd be in a better position and be able to compete better.
Bill, I'm sure you saw this last night. Our old boy, Baker Mayfield, takes to social media and welcomes his old head coach, Kevin Stefanski, to the NFC South. Failed is quite the reach, pal. I'm still waiting on a call or text from him after I got shipped off like a piece of garbage. Can't wait to see you twice a year, coach. Phil, what do you make of Baker v. Stefanski?
He woke up feeling dangerous, you know what I mean? And I like it, you know what I mean? But he ain't gonna get that call. It's the nature of this business of the NFL, man. They as soon as they draft you, they looking to replace you. You know what I mean? And it's what have you done for me lately type of thing. So I love it, and it's just gonna, he has a chip on his shoulder, and I bet Stefanski, he saw it. So. He's going to be wanting to do, but he got the bag, after, winning, 8 games in 2 seasons, you know what I mean, here. So, yeah.
Phil, thank you so much for coming on the Daily Dogs. We appreciate your time. You do a phenomenal job on the Top Dogs show here on the Big Play Sports Network. Appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your day. We look forward to having you back on.
Appreciate it, guys.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into the Daily Dogs here on the Big Play Sports Network. Shout out Phil Taylor giving us that good analysis. He said Baker Mayfield woke up feeling dangerous, Nick, and I think that's exactly what happened. Or I guess in this case, Nick, he went to bed feeling dangerous because his tweet didn't come out until last night. Nick, this is funny. I hope it's all in good fun. I'm a little bit shocked Baker took this shot relating to that article. We talk about Baker maturing, and he really has, and he's developed himself such a nice career there in Tampa Bay. Got paid a bag. Obviously, this season started off great. It didn't end the way he would have liked to. Were you shocked to see this response from Baker?
I mean, right now, I'm waiting for Johnny Manziel to chime in. At this point, we've got, coaches dropping out of the head coaching candidacy. We've got the coach that I think the team really wants to hire is now in demand, an interest in Buffalo. Welcome to covering the Cleveland Browns, dude. They say never a dull moment. There is quite literally never a dull moment. We can't even get through this coaching, stuff without hearing tweets from Baker Mayfield. He hasn't been online in how long? We haven't had to talk about a Baker Mayfield tweet since he posted that goodbye letter where he signed his middle to Baker Reagan Mayfield. It is just another day of Cleveland Browns lore, and it will be interesting. The NFC South certainly has plenty of reason to tune in now.
One thing I'll say to Baker Mayfield, you said in that tweet, Baker, that you look forward to playing Kevin Stefanski at the Atlanta Falcons 2 times a year. You better hope those 2 times a year, week 1 through 8, because Baker Mayfield, back half of the season, consistently falls off. That's all I have to say about that. But I do wish Baker the best in all seriousness. Wish Kevin the best in all seriousness. Nick, you mentioned it's never a dull day here in Cleveland.
They got to put these games in prime time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And even names that leave Cleveland, such as Baker Mayfield, just always see what's the saying? You can take the man out of Cleveland, but you can't take Cleveland out of the man. And I think that's the case here with Baker Mayfield.
It's never dull. And I bet at some point this year, man, he wasn't perfect to finish out that season. I was kind of questioning myself, like, are they going to go into 2026 with Baker Mayfield? Obviously, he believes that they are, and he's putting out there that he's looking forward to playing Stefanski 2 times a year. You could tell, like, Baker still hurt deep down with how everything ended. He wanted to be here with the Browns, and I think the fact that he didn't get a call from Stefanski, who was his coach for a good majority of that time, at least 3 years, or the last 2 seasons in Cleveland. And isn't it just poetic in a way? And I put this out there on X, like, Stefanski and Mayfield, regardless of how you feel about them as individuals, they were the best coach and quarterback duo that we've had in Cleveland since 1999. They were the closest we've had to Belichick and Brady, to Breeze and Sean Payton. Like, that was it for us, and it was a fleeting moment. And it's just kind of poetic that the best that we've ever had, a coach and quarterback together, they vehemently hate each other now. Like, that's just... welcome to covering the Cleveland Browns, man. It's just how it is. It's bizarre.
Well, Nick, I look forward to seeing you 2 more times this week on the Daily Dogs to round up the week, Thursday and Friday. For Nick Pannone, I am Ryan Tyler. We appreciate you tuning in here to the Daily Dogs right here on the Big Play Sports Network, presented by FanDuel. We'll catch you tomorrow.